My friends, how should we start this video I'm about to make? I want to just say that this is one of the best times to be living. It's one of the best times to be living in America, in the United States. We just finished with an election, one of the most historic elections I myself have ever witnessed since I started voting in 2008. Something unprecedented and historic happened in this election 2024. And as I was watching the election, and I watched the whole thing from when it started here in the Pacific Northwest, it started at 4 o'clock, with the first polls closing, and me understanding and analyzing what direction was this election going to take. We had two candidates, Kamala Harris for the Democratic Party and Donald J. Trump running again for the third time. And what we witnessed early on, and this is my take on what I witnessed in this whole election, in this historic election, that days after it happened, which is November 9th when I'm making this video, I am still a little shocked. Not shocked, but shocked in a good way of how the whole thing played out. So I'm gonna give you my take, because part of my channel, Pollo Chicano. I'm for freedom of speech, freedom of expression, freedom of opinion, and all the freedoms that this country offers us as American citizens, as a born American citizen of Mexican heritage. What we witnessed, like I mentioned, was something so incredible. And I did make a video a couple months ago. I will be revealing who I voted for. And you guys can probably even guess, if you've seen some of my short videos and you've seen some of my long videos, on roughly who I supported during this election. But let's talk about the election results, and then what does the future hold for this new president, this new wave. So I was watching the election results while also on my phone. I was on X, so I got an X account on there. People were revealing who they were voting for and all the status throughout the night. The first polls closed in Indiana, Kentucky, and some of these states early on. Of course, red states were going directly for Trump. While was the first votes coming in, what really stood out for me early on was the amount and the strength that were coming in from the popular vote. And that was something I was looking at during election night, was how far this popular vote was going to move. And it moved really strong in the beginning once the first states start closing. And I told myself, well, is this trend going to continue throughout the whole night? And it did. It continued throughout the whole night. A strong popular vote, huge votes, tons of votes were coming in for Donald Trump. Never seen anything like it, just a strength. Because I kept an eye on the 2020 election, and it was more like this. But no, this one was like this. And just votes and votes were coming in. So for me, it was really interesting because the popular vote was very strong for him, which wasn't really that strong when it was back in 16 or 20. It was mostly back-to-back with slim margins. And then states were starting to be called for him, so he was starting to accumulate electoral votes for some of the red states. And then some of the most important battleground states like Georgia, North Carolina were coming in, reporting strong numbers for him early on. And then the state that everybody was watching out of those battleground states was Pennsylvania. Those polls were starting to close. Votes were starting to be counted. Was looking strong. Very strong. And like I said, I kept watching the popular vote. Not popular vote, but it never weakened. the votes just started coming in. So a lot of these states were coming in strong for Trump, and I'm looking at the electoral college map. And I watched it throughout the whole night. I was watching as states were getting called in his favor, and his electoral number was kept increasing. I think one thing that did stand out, even in the blue states that were leaning or Democrat, were also strong votes were coming in for Donald Trump. Strength, a lot of strength, even in the blue, everywhere across the nations. Once I look at this map and I look at the different numbers in here, and these polls started closing, and I noticed there was just a lot of strength. And early on, I had a feeling at how it was played out that he was most likely going to win the election. And then what really stood out to me was Florida. And I think Florida, Texas, some of these deep red states. Once Florida finished with the counting and then reporting, I was completely blown. Over 10%, which is right here, 13% percentage win. They had him about 8 to 9% in the polls, but he went by 13% in Florida. And as soon as those numbers started coming in, leading by 500,000, leading by 1 million early on, and then the state got called for him right away. I was like, wow, this is impressive, because in these states that they had him for lower numbers, his numbers boosted and increased a lot. And I noticed that early on, Florida got called in for him. I was like, wow, this is going to be played out. And in Ohio, some of the numbers started coming in. It wasn't even close either. More electoral votes for him. And then the states that everybody was watching, of course, the Pennsylvania one, too close to call, Michigan, Wisconsin. Those were still counting, which were either leaning in one direction or leaning in the other, blue or red. Nothing was reported. But as the night kept up, more states got in his favor. Of course, his red states, Kansas, Oklahoma, and then, like I was mentioning, Texas. And I'm looking at the numbers here. Huge numbers that he won. A lot of people came in, voted for this man heavily. I was like, wow, this is going to be played out pretty bad for the Democratic Party. And as soon as Senate races, for the sake of this, I'm not going to talk about the Senate races or the House races. But as you know, I'm just going to be focusing on the presidential race. I myself am not too familiar with the Senate or the House race. I was more looking at the main election on there. But I know for sure that there's a red majority now in the Senate and possibly in the House, which I don't really keep too much tabs on that. But I know there are also a lot of red going in there. So as soon as the votes started coming in, played out, I was like, and Trump got closer to his number. North Carolina got called for him. I was like, no, this is going to be a Trump victory on there. And then Georgia was getting close. They were still counting some votes. And then throughout the night, once the state of Georgia got called, I'm like, no, this is going to be pretty much over. And you look at his numbers, he needed only really Pennsylvania and another state to really reach the 270 number, and it was looking extremely good for him. The polls started closing. At that time, it was a little bit later at night. I think they took a little bit too long to call some of these states on there. I think the race probably could have ended maybe an hour earlier than what they called it. And then you had Arizona, Nevada. Actually, Arizona today on November 9th, looking at the data here, is called for Donald Trump. So he gets 11 electoral votes. And I'm looking at the final number here. Of course, they're still counting votes, believe it or not. It's November 9th. And California only reported 66%. So they're still counting votes, even this later on. But it looks like Arizona, Nevada, he also won, which brings Trump's total to 312 electoral votes. Huge votes for him. And like I said, those two polls, which I knew either Nevada or Arizona, they were in play, but they didn't really matter at that point because they take such a long time to count. But as soon as it played out and Pennsylvania was called, it was basically over. He only really needed another state, which then Wisconsin, I think Wisconsin and Alaska, once it started closing the polls for Alaska, I think it closed them up to about 277 when I saw the report. And then from there, he was declared president with winning the popular vote on there. there hasn't really been when I was looking at some of the data, such a red wave of support since Ronald Reagan, It was huge support for him that came out in these states, supported former or now President Trump throughout this election cycle. And I watched the whole thing from the moment he gave his speech and the historical impacts that this is going to have on the United States. And then ever since then, I've personally felt extremely good. And so, guys, as you all know, I'm going to take off my Pollo Chicano hat, and I will be revealing who I voted for in this election. You guys probably already know. You don't have to say. I put on my Trump 2024 hat. And that's exactly who I've been supporting. I've been advocating for Trump 2024 on my social media. And now that this election is over, I can say that I voted for Donald Trump in 2016, 2020, and now 2024. So 3 times. And now, look, it's always important to know the history. I'm 34 years old, so my first time ever voting was in 2008. And I'll tell you exactly how I voted throughout this whole period. In 2008, I voted for Obama. In 2012, I went for Mitt Romney. So I was for business. My mindset changed a little bit. 2016, Trump. 2020, Trump. And this recent election, Trump. 3 times for Trump. Now, that's what I love about this country is the ability to express myself, the freedom of speech, and using these platforms, using YouTube, a platform that reaches a whole bunch of people. What is it, over 2 billion members? Over 2 billion members on YouTube. So we have a huge audience. Now, my channel is small, but it's reaching a point where it's growing. It's growing in numbers. And eventually, we'll get to 10,000. We'll get to 50,000, then we'll get to 100,000. Gotta be patient with the channel. But the ability to be able to express yourself, the liberties that we have for speech, for all this, is due to we live in this beautiful country, which is the United States. That we have the ability to be able to do that and to express ourselves on a platform and reach thousands, millions, not even thousands, but millions of people that can hear the message. So it's a great time to be living. It's one of the best times. I feel so proud of being an American. I have never felt this proud in my years, in all these years. But what is coming to us is a historic revolution. We can't even I gotta find the right words for this. We have to understand that what is coming is a revolution. It is economic, social, spiritual revolution. What is coming? We don't even understand and imagine what is coming. The change, the biggest change ever seen in the history of this country is coming. Something that we probably can't even imagine. I can't even imagine. But I can tell you for sure that this is the place to be living right now. That this is the greatest country in the world. And I can assure you that that's true. How do I know that's true? Because we have the best people, people like myself, educated from Hispanic heritage, be able to communicate and speak through video creation, my experience, my hard work, my labor, my passion, everything dedicated to this country, my effort to be the best. You don't get this anywhere else in any other country than here. Here you become the best. And that's exactly what Donald Trump wants to bring here, is the best people. The best people. We're going to welcome the best people all around the world, and they're going to be coming here. The best people are going to be coming here, and we're going to just have an economic explosion that we have never seen before. This will be the greatest nation that God has ever created. I'm going to say God because we're going to get back to our values. We're going to get back to the values that make us strong and great. Our 50 states are going to be changed. Whether you're a Democrat, Republican, doesn't matter. What's coming is a revolution that we have never seen before. And it is the greatest time to be alive. Now, I'm going to share something personal. I didn't feel like this. I was a little nervous a couple weeks ago leading up to the election. At times throughout the year, especially in the beginning of the year, I did not feel confident because there was a lot of uncertainty around a lot of things. So we did not feel confident. And so once the election was over, something was lifted off our shoulders. And now we feel more confident. Because spiritually, economically, values, morals, everything you want to call is coming back. It's coming back to this great country and this great nation that I live. And that's where I'm making this video. Yes, I live in Oregon. There's changes coming here too. There's changes coming all around the country. And now I feel like something was been lifted off my shoulders. I'm also going to be releasing a video. I did supporting him when I was in Thailand. I took a trip to Thailand a few months ago, where I also spoke how I felt during that time. And I will be releasing that video too, because I think it's extremely important to understand that we were living in really uncertain times, but now everything is going to be great. You know, America will become the greatest country. If not, it really is, because it's already changing to become the greatest nation ever to exist. And today I was posting on X some messages that I was sending some people, you know, because I consider myself a researcher. I consider myself an analyst too, because I do a lot of reflections and I analyze a lot of things. I consider myself those things, of course. And I read a lot of facts, I read a lot of information, and I draw conclusions based on the information I have. But also using my experience also to make those decisions. So what is coming, guys, like I mentioned, is greatness. For those that stayed and watched, I'm going a little bit off my time because usually I keep it within a shorter time frame, but I'm going to go a little bit longer because I think this is very important. Hopefully you stay with me during this video. Watch the whole thing, guys. And you can always help in Pollo Chicano. You can help the Pollo Chicano if you hit comment, like, and subscribe to the channel. That helps the YouTube algorithm, the analytics, so when I look it up, so that way my videos can get promoted all throughout YouTube. And that's another thing too. I think supporting smaller YouTube channels like mine is excellent. It's great because I think we're going to be, a lot of our content is focused exclusively on a lot of our personal things, at least in my situation, in my channel. And I'm going to start doing some of these, once these events happen, like this election was one of the biggest events in 2024. It's important to be talking about these things because we live in America and people want to know what the different opinions are across that. And part of my channel is that, you know, I have another channel because I run a small construction business. You can also subscribe to that channel. It's FRC Construction on there. That one, I talk more about the type of work I do, the type of small business I run, and some of the work that I do on there. So you can watch that one. It's FRC Construction. I like to, because this is more of my personal channel. You can call it my personal sphere. And that's why I really like to talk about these type of things. I don't really talk about these things on my business channel. I keep it professional 100%. And I talk about business related things on there. So that's the two channels I have. That's my two journeys that I've started. One, I started my account on the FRC Construction channel in 2020. The other one I did, I have only about 2 years, 2022. I decided, and it was my aunt who told me to separate because I had content I was releasing on both channels, but I figured I need to separate the business from a personal channel. And that's why I created the Pollo Chicano channel on there. And that ability to, it's hard to keep two channels active. But for me, I've always been really good at talking, speaking, my mind, reflecting, analyzing all this. It just comes naturally to me. So I guess I can, if you're watching this, I encourage you also to start creating some content on there. You know, just whatever comes to you, create that content. Be yourself. This is the greatest country in the world that allows us to do this. To be yourself on there. And you're going to have people watching, because I know I have subscriber base watching. A lot of my subscriber base is also based in Spanish. So the reason why I have my channel in bilingual in 2 languages, English and Spanish, is because I have 2 sets of people that follow me. The English speakers, of course, living here in the United States is really important. And also my Spanish audience too, that follows me in Mexico and too. And this is great too for those that are my Spanish speakers, can also use this type of content that I make to learn English. You know, this is why I love doing this, because my channel can also help those Spanish speakers learn more English, and vice versa. The English speakers can learn to speak Spanish. So I'm going to keep it always in 2 languages, which are my 2 primary languages that I speak. English y español. Son 2 idiomas que yo hablo. And so that's why I can relate to the English speakers, and I also can relate to my Spanish speaker. It's excellent. It's great. That's why I love this country, right? Your ability, of course, our primary language is English. And I advocate for everybody to learn English here in the United States. If you want to be in this country, you got to learn English. But my ability also to speak Spanish or speak your other language, the freedom to do that is excellent. But we also have to remember that English has to be spoken here, because that's the country that we live, and that's where we have to be speaking. So I went off a little bit. That was my personal thing. We were talking about this recent election video, the results. Like I mentioned in the beginning, Trump ended up with 312 electoral votes, with Harris's 226. Clear victory for Donald Trump. And like I mentioned, what is coming is great. You know, the people he's going to bring in, the team he's going to bring in on his administration is strong. You got people like Robert F. Kennedy Jr., which I supported. You know, I thought the Democratic Party did a terrible job in pushing him away from the party. Longtime Democrat, you know. He would have been a great candidate for the Democratic Party, and I think they would have challenged Trump very strong if he wasn't there. But then they pushed him aside like they typically do. And he's been friends with Trump too, and he's going to be part of the administration moving forward. So Robert F. Kennedy Jr., big person I support as well, running on the Trump team. I mean, that's an excellent team. I also did an X post before when he was running for the Democratic primary, which I knew he didn't have a chance to win that primary. But now he's joining the Trump team on there, and I think they're going to do an excellent job. I think I haven't looked up into too much who his administration or cabinet he's picking. That's a big one. I think Elon Musk is also going to be running a commission of the government, so they're going to do an audit of the U.S. government, which is something we need urgently. We need to know which dollars are going where and how much money the government is spending on different organizations in different different systems, or whatever they spend their money on. We need a full audit on all that, and we need reporting on those monies that are being spent on the government. And I've always said this, and I said this, we need to cut back on government spending to cut back on our national debt. And I said this to one of my friends in Iowa, which shout out to my friend Mitch in Iowa. We kept good communication for many years. I live in Oregon. He lives in Iowa. So we always keep in touch on major events that happens. It's been a while since I've seen him. We talk on Facebook and we talk on the message. So big shout out to Mitch in Iowa, brother. It's always good to have a friend in the Midwest. Oh, I also have a friend in the East Coast too. So I have a friend in the East Coast, I have a friend in the Midwest, and I myself living in the Pacific Northwest. So I have a friend too, Nick. Shout out to Nick too, to New Jersey. From Argentina, Nick. Shout out to you as well. Live in New Jersey. You told me what's up too. We stay in touch. We communicate a couple times per year. We also have a business relationship as well for my business. So all the way from New Jersey. So, and I also got, I think, another friend too in Florida too. I think he moved to Puerto Vallarta, but he was living in Florida as well. So I got friends across the nation, and I get an insight about what's going on in their states on there. So it's great to have friends across here. We should all be united. Every one of us should be united in this great nation, in this great country that we live. And now that we have a Trump coming back in January, I can't wait on there. If it was up to me, I would put him in right now. But we have to respect our rules, our laws, our Constitution. Right now, it's President Biden, and he has to finish his term. That's how it states, because we're a country of rules, laws, and regulations that we follow, which makes our country great. So he's going to finish his term on the 20th. Trump's going to come in, run his 4 years. Another election is going to happen in 2028. But now this is concluded. Our work, the voters did their job. And now it's 4 years of his administration. So big changes are coming. Embrace it. Embrace all these new changes, guys. Love your country. Love your nation. Love everything about it. And I assure you that it will love you back. What an election this was. Never would have imagined that such a strong wave, a populist wave, I can call it. The populist movement is also huge all across the world. It happened in Mexico. This year, there was also elections in Mexico where they elected the first female president ever in history. True progressivism. I call that true progressivism. Why? because they elected a woman for the first time. Now, there's going to be a woman too here in the United States. It just wasn't the time here. I'm not going to be talking about Trump's opponent. Everybody knew who the lady was, Harris. She had no clear future or clear vision about what she wanted to do, and that's why she lost. She wasn't the woman for this job. There was going to be a woman in the future, just not this time. Not yet, but there will be. And that's true progressivism when it happens. But we're going to have a strong leader when that happens, a strong woman that's going to be leading this great nation. And it's going to be ready to lead this great nation. It's just not the time. The time is Trump for 4 more years. And then we'll see in 2028. This is the great thing about living in a true republic, that there has to be a separation of powers, a checks and balances that we call it here in America. To be able to, the voter go out and be able to choose the best candidate to run your great country. And any of us can run this country. That's what the beautiful thing about Trump, that he opened the doors to everybody. This is the best country in the world. Why? Because the doors are open for everybody. It's open for you watching, believe it or not. It's open. I mean, I don't have any political aspirations. I'm not going to rule it out. I just don't. I like what I do in business. I do get involved a little bit politically, but I have no aspirations for that. I'm not going to close it completely, but isn't that a beautiful thing about this country, guys, that the doors are open for anybody? You know, my sister in 2020, she was a candidate, you know. This is the country where it's open for anybody can hold a political position. It's the only place in the world, because we all know that it's all led by elite groups all across the world. And anybody here can be in those political positions and make a change for your counties, make a change for your states and your country. Isn't that great? We should always be supporting that type of republic democracy. True republic democracy. It is, and I texted up some people today, it is the greatest system ever invented. Well, not invented, I don't want to say invented. It's the greatest system created in this world. It is the only system that works. It is a true democracy, true republic. The true republic. There is no other system that's ever going to exist. We can be talking about, and I read, you know, communism, fascism, you know, capitalism. We can be talking about all those things, but I'm not going to be getting into those topic of things. But I do understand that this is the greatest republic ever. And it's blessed under a great God. Whatever that God may be, a Christian or whatever it is, but there is a creator, a God watching over us, watching over this nation. And what has happened this year is God's will, God's blessing to a better and more prosperous future. A future for families, for people. And this will change the landscape of the world. I feel it. This will change this world for good. Now it is our job to maintain that peace that's coming. There's going to be peace. There's going to be deals forged with Putin, with that guy from Israel, and then Yahoo, that's going to stop. We're going to be forging peace deals for a long time, and we got to sustain. Now is our jobs as humanity, anybody watching this, to maintain those peaceful things. We live in a world now that we don't need to be in war. But we do need to protect our nations. The sovereignty of our nations should be protected. Just like we protect our sovereignty of our nation, countries have the right to protect the sovereignty of their nation. And we need to cut new deals, new pacts with countries to respect those boundaries. And if we learn to respect the boundaries and the sovereignty of our nations, we'll live in a peaceful world like we've never seen before, under the God that was meant to be ruling in this world. So, thanks for watching this video, guys. It's a little long, I know, but it's a great message for you, the viewer. Pollo Chicano, the channel. You know, I want to end it with one thing on there. I was talking to my uncle, and he told me the changes come from the smallest things that we can ever imagine. This is where the changes come. I make a difference, and I know I made a difference for some people. Small, medium, big, whatever it is. I made those changes. We make those changes together. Through this. Through our will and our freedoms. That is the greatest thing we can be rewarded with. So thank you for watching this video. Respect to everybody who went out and voted. Voting is very important. Whoever you voted for is super important. But make sure your voice is heard. Voting happens every 4 years. I know there's the midterm elections with that, but that's super important. Whatever happens to the outcome, it's always going to be a change, and it's going to be for the better. That's what we always expect for the future. We make the changes. We lead the way. And like I said on my FRC construction channel, if you watch that, don't forget to watch that one too. It's paving the future for you. Thanks for watching. Subscribe, hit like, and we'll see you guys on the next video. Adiós. Nos vemos en la próxima.